Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another live stream. And This is day 4 where I am painting a portrait in watercolor every day. And It's been going good so far. And you can see my YouTube channel and find a playlist that is going to contain all of these in order and can paint along if you like or just watch. Of course, the recordings will be on my YouTube channel, so you can watch it anytime. All right, this morning I'm going to paint this picture. This time a young man and another monochrome or grayscale image. And This man, again, what I'm looking for in reference images is really pretty strong contrast. This does not have as strong a contrast as the one yesterday of the woman. You can see more here on the left side of his face. It's not casting dark shadow, but it's still an obvious source of light coming from the right and illuminating the right side of the face. And so I have a lot of shadows and all that I can work with. And yeah, and I think it looks good. Um, yeah, so we'll get started. Let's go over to the painting view. I have already transferred the drawing to my paper here, and you can see that here. And again, not a lot of detail in the drawing, just enough to give me the reference that I need to paint. So I think what I'm going to do today is do it all in ultramarine blue, French ultramarine. I mentioned this the other day, but I just recently got some Daniel Smith French ultramarine blue. I never really understood or appreciated the difference between ultramarine blue and French ultramarine. Did a little reading. I'm doing reading on color theory and pigments for watercolor, and one author I read stated that French ultramarine is got a more of a reddish hue to it than regular ultramarine, so it leans towards red more. And so that was interesting to me. They're both they're both made from PB29, which is the pigment, and it's a pure pigment, one pigment only, which I like. And it is my most red blue that I have on my palette. My other blues lean a little more towards the green. So there you go. So I'm cleaning off my palette, coming in, here's my French ultramarine. So, again, the goal here, I might introduce a second color to make it not a complete value study with a single pigment. I may, but we'll see. Again, I'm not worried about realistic color here. One, I don't have any color to go by in the reference image. It's just a grayscale. But also just focusing on values and trying to see values, which is really essential in being able to create a realistic representation of someone, of anything. So there we go. There's all my blue. And one thing I did yesterday, I used indigo yesterday. I found that it really dries a lot lighter after you put it down. So I decided I want to try something different today. And I also thought about how I really tried to start with a dark application of the paint right off the bat. And I think I'm going to do something a little different today and put down a little bit lighter and then kind of build up my values as I go. Again, we know that in watercolor we start with light. We start with lighter values and then work up, as opposed to other paintings, medium like acrylic or an oil, where you tend to go the other direction from dark to light. And so I'm gonna start out a little lighter today. All right, let me start my timer and get going here. Looking at this, I'm gonna not paint the background first, but just start with the young man. The side of his hair is all very dark. His hair is messy, so I can be messy, right? It's the beautiful thing about messy hair is you can be messy, and it's all pretty dark. There's not much breaking up of the values there. So there is a little bit at the crown. He's got a little light in the part area there, so I'll leave some there. Coming around, it's pretty dark here as well. The light is coming from the upper right, but this mop of hair is so thick and dark that it pretty much blocks any light. Comes down a little bit there, and yeah. And then down on the other side, again, this is pretty dark, but it also kind of, yeah, we'll just leave that. Comes in there and into his ear, and yeah, his eyebrows there, quite dark. The eye, actually, I'm just going to bring it right down into the eye, except for leaving a little glint of light. Otherwise, that's pretty dark. And I come in and darken this up a little bit by dropping pigment into already very dark area, and or wet area, I should say. And there we go. Down along the side of his face is a little bit, and yeah. I'm trying to be a little bit quicker and a little bit, maybe a little less precise this time. He's got dark there on that side of the eye, outlining his eye there and here. So all that's kind of flowing together. And here. Again, if you you want to connect a lot of your shapes is another important concept in painting. We tend to think, oh, paint your eye separate, and then paint another eye separate, and then paint the nose separate, and really that just creates cartoony looking and very elementary looking paintings. Whereas, see, I'm kind of flowing from the eyebrow to the eye to the edge of the nose down, and there's a little breaking of the lines. It's not constant because there is a breaking there, but I'm trying to connect the shapes, and then there's a little bit of connecting from that nose to the left side shadow of the there, and then that can connect into this left side of the mouth, and across the mouth underneath the lip, because that's really the darkest area on the mouth. Down along that side, he's got big lips coming in here and to that side of the mouth, and then stop. And then I can see the edge of his jacket here, and this comes down all the way down into about here, and then this pretty dark in here, and yeah, kind of that, kind of the folds can be seen, etc. And it's also on this side, quite dark into his neck, and yeah, I'm not going to worry about too much detail here, just kind of yeah, I think this. I don't even have all of this visible on my screen here, so some of this I'm just making up here. But he has, yeah, there's like light there, and then it actually connects to the side of his face here and down along his neck and his chin. It's very dark at the very bottom of his chin and about to there. Okay, so there you go. And that's to me like all the darkest, an initial run, initial pass, all the darkest areas. Okay, and see how just by capturing that you already have, you can see, okay, person, right? And it doesn't, yeah, and all I've done is just capture the darkest values, and really seeing the connected shapes and focusing not on objects like eye or nose or whatever, but just seeing shapes. And that really helps to be able to do that. Okay. And again, we have layer upon layer upon layer of in his jacket and like that. And let's see, what else did I miss here? That went pretty quick, pretty good. There's a little bit of, and this is a place where you often, a place to define the lips. There's a shadow usually right underneath the lip, the lower lip. The shadow, the lips are casting a shadow there, so you want to capture that. That really helps. You get, of course, the upper lip. At the bottom of the upper lip there's a shadow, so you capture that. And yeah, and then because the light's coming from the right, this left side of the lip is a little bit darker, and in here, and the nose. Now I've got a little lighter application now, right? I've got less pigment on my brush, and so I'm coming in and now putting in more of a medium value, whereas before I was trying to put in my darkest values. And squinting, trying to get a sense for the overall values and shapes, and diminishing. By squinting you diminish or de-emphasize the details, and you only see kind of what you need to see. To get the job done. And so, well, some of this really dried over here pretty quick. Again, I was working initially, as I have every time so far. I've been working wet on dry to start with every time. I haven't yet in this series done like, apply a bunch of water to the paper first and then go wet into wet. I haven't done that at all. Now, of course, once you put down the initial color, the paper is wet, and so then when you come back later to add, you sometimes are working wet and wet. So techniques change up as you go along, depending on if the paper is already wet. Okay, it's quite dark up here on the forehead on the left side, and darker, I should say. It's not left. I don't want to leave that white. So really the only areas that should be white by the time I get done are the top of the nose, and the right forehead, the right cheek, and I've got now a clean brush, wet, and thinking about areas where I might come in and just add some water along an edge and loosen it, soften it, I should say, the edge, so I don't have such a hard edge. So I just see areas where I want to do that, so I'm coming in and yeah, there's a little bit in here. This edge, this ear over here, oh, there's a lot of pigment there, so I'm actually just going to pick some of that up. And there needs to be a bit more of a hard edge here along that side. It's kind of where the edge of his hair goes down and then back up here. Yeah. I love the graininess of ultramarine. It's really one of my favorite colors. And so you can see as it's starting to dry, you can see the granularity, the graininess kind of emerging. And it's lovely. A lot of this jacket is pretty dark down here. This kind of has, so I'm going to kind of blend some of this in, and this whole area over here has to be a little darker. So again, I'm going to just grab and drag some of this color that's already there, and this side of the neck has to be lighter. See, what I'm doing, I actually like what's happening here, because I'm getting a combination of hard edges and soft, because it was starting to dry, and so I was starting to get a hard edge. But then when coming back with a little water on the brush, it's taking and creating some softness, but also leaving some of those hard edges. So it's a nice combination of lost and found edges, as they like to say. And so here we have more going on this, a little darker on this side of the face. I don't want to leave really all of that white area in there completely, because it's just, it needs to be more of a contrast between the left and the right side of the face. So I don't want any white left on the left side. There we go. Because again, the light is coming from here, and I need to make that obvious. Kind of want to get real loose down here. The further you get away from your main focal point, the more, loose and expressive your style can be, because you again, you aren't really wanting to focus on these areas here. And yeah, like that. I think that's good. Just let that be. And now again, the very darkest areas, this is still wet up here in the hair. So if I come back now with a brush that has mostly not really water, just pigment on it. I don't want water on my brush here, because otherwise I get blooms. But I want to darken this, and it's still wet, so I can come in and it'll just blend in. It's not all wet up here. Some areas are more wet than others. It's kind of funny. The paper has little what's it called, like areas where the paper is kind of bent, buckled, and so in areas that are low, the water's gathering. In areas, where it's more dry, it's more dry. It's paper has, the water has run off certain areas and stayed in other areas. So anyways, so now when I go move from one spot to the next, I have a variation of how the paper's reacting to this. In some places it's keeping its edge, in other areas it's not. It's kind of interesting. And that's all that was. This area was all painted at the same time a little while ago, but it still has a variation in wetness, which is always makes it really interesting and challenging. There we go. So that darkened that, and the darkest areas are there. His eyes, the left side of his neck. So again, I squint and I go, what are the darkest areas in this painting? Hair, eyes, left side of jacket, neck, and you know, down in here as well. There's kind of a hole down in here where the light's not getting in there. And you know, I think I kind of messed up a little bit on the neck. I think it's more like this is where the edge of his neck is, and I kind of made his neck a little too thin. So what I'm going to do, if I can, is lift some of that dark I just put in. Does that make sense, what I'm trying to do? I put in too much dark right here, and it is like, oh, that's actually not, that shouldn't be this dark right there. That's the edge of his neck. The edge of his neck is more like here. And if I mess that up, it makes his neck look too skinny and it looks funny. And there we go. All right. Something that's a little better. Save the day. So that's an instance where you're trying to make sure your drawing is correct as you go along. And kind of messed that, but I caught it. It just looked funny. Constantly looking at your reference image, constantly comparing, and yeah, I don't know why, but I like painting with this. I like painting with this French ultramarine more than the indigo that I was painting with yesterday. The indigo, I don't know, I just was having a harder time. I felt like I had to keep coming back. I don't what it was just reacting different. I've been told recently that indigo, while it's a lovely color and all, it is the red that they use in it is supposedly more fugitive, meaning it will fade. And I didn't know that, and I haven't really had a chance to research that, but I'll real quickly just jump over back to my reference image here. This is what we're painting from. There's a link to it below in the video. And if I look at that and then come back here and look at that, you can see, yeah, what's going on here, how it looks. I'm thinking about, again, some of these areas are just still slightly wet, but not. And there's kind of like a little button on the jacket here. I can't even see it in on my tablet where I have the reference image, so I'm just making it up. That's okay. A little bit of artistic license. So I have, of course, I can't see the reference image on my computer. I'm looking at a different screen, but I do have the reference image on a tablet that I keep on here, and I like to do it that way because I can see I can zoom in on it. I can also, of course, this doesn't have color. This is a monochrome image, but normally I can really see the colors nice and brightly when I'm trying to get a good sense of the color and all that. So like that. Again, I still see a little line there I don't like, so I'm going to try and soften that in the neck and soften. That's picking up nicely, so even with this soft brush. Okay, what do I want to do next? Let's see here. I see a dot there. It looks a little too light on that side of the nose, so I'm just going to smooth that out a bit, add some more. I might be fussing now with it too much. I just might need to let it dry here for a bit, and then maybe come back with a little detail work. Let's see, or I don't know. I might be done. Again, we are at 21 minutes right now of paint time, and my goal is to kind of stop even before I think I'm done and just force myself to leave these things being fresh, quick studies. I'm doing them daily. I'm not looking to have necessarily perfect, complete pieces. But focusing on value and getting, so I might end up, I want to darken a little bit here underneath his chin. This area is really dark. His chin here actually kind of blends and right into his neck, going down this way, and connecting shapes, seeing where shapes. Again, we think, oh, I got to keep the chin and the neck separate, right? And so we put a little line there like the chin. But that's actually not what you see. If you look carefully along this left-hand side of the chin, you can't see in some places where the chin ends and the neck shadow begins. And so you want to connect those two areas. Again, it more closely actually resembles, by doing that, what we actually see. If you read a book called this is what changed it for me, Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain, Betty Edwards, a classic drawing book from the 1970s, she talks a lot about that, how when we're children, we learn to draw, to draw objects and say, okay, what is an eye? What shape is an eye? What shape is a nose? What shape is a mouth? And we get these symbols in our mind for these things, and that's what we draw. And then most of us, then as we get a little older and we learn to read, and we substitute, we get a more advanced view of the world. We have a hard time getting away from those initial symbols for things and learning how to draw what we actually see. And then most people give up drawing at that point at around maybe 10 or 12 years old, and then everyone's drawing skills kind of stay at that nascent point in their life when they were 10, 12, or when they stopped drawing. And that's why people are, oh, my drawings look like a child's. Well, that's when you stop drawing and stop learning how to draw, and so it's kind of interesting. Good book, recommend it. Okay, I'm kind of playing here. I'm just kind of adding, and I've not yet let this fully dry. So there's a lot of these areas I'm working on now. I'm working wet into wet, and I'm having more luck, if you can call it that. I'm having more success with using this French ultramarine for some reason than I did yesterday when I was using my. I'm just liking the way it's working wet into wet and all that, and maybe not blooming as much. I don't know if that's because of the pigment or just something I'm doing different. I don't know. But I'm having a better time here, so I think I've just decided this is my color for doing these value studies. And yeah, he's got big bushy eyebrows, dark, dark, dark. His eyes are very dark and kind of mysterious, right? And one thing I see that I haven't done very well yet, this is a very, very dark well of darkness there above his eyes, right? And I feel like I need a little bit of detail in his eyes to capture. The eyes are so important, and so I might get my hair dryer and dry this a little bit, and then come back and just add a few real specific details with my little brush here, my little liner. You know, I don't know if I need to dry it. I think I'm going to attempt this. It's pretty dry in there. So important here. This would be the one place I would grab this little tiny brush and try to create some real specific detail on his eyes. Because then your eye, as you view this, will just go right to that area, right? And that's where our eyes go when we view a person. When we view a person, we immediately look at their eyes, right? That's such an important place. And so it's so important that you get that right. And so getting your small detail brush out and doing that, really important. Yeah, I think that helps, right? I don't know, you know. I'm sorry if people are commenting at all in the comments. I'm not viewing those at all while I paint. I just am unable to do that and paint at the same time. So please forgive me if I'm not responding. However, you can make comments or ask questions, and I will look at them later or and respond to them on my channel in the comments after the playing of the videos or the live stream is over. I'm happy to interact and answer questions and feedback, but I can't really do it right now. Get a little more detail on the mouth there as well. So again, I'm just about done here. Working with very heavy pigment on the brush. Most of this is pretty dry. So even though it's pretty dark in here, I can still come and just a little bit more darkness in areas where I need to really emphasize some of the lines there in the eye. Yeah, I'm liking it. So unlike what I said I might do, I just stayed with a single color here. This is French Ultramarine by Daniel Smith. Somewhat of a new pigment or color for me. It's the same pigment, PB29, that I've always used, but French Ultramarine, a little bit different mixture of the PB29, from what I understand. There's a zipper there. I don't know if I can create that detail. All right, I think I'm done. Okay, I'm exactly at 30 minutes. Wow, exactly perfect. So I'm going to stop. I'm going to sign it in a second, and I'll leave it at that. And I like it. It's sketchy. It's impressionistic somewhat. It was done in 30 minutes exactly. It's a good value study. I think I maintained my highlights well. Got my relative values pretty good. Kind of discussing what I mean by that. You know, all values are relative. So you always have to say, okay, is this area, how much darker is this area than the eyes? How much lighter is this area here, or the top of the nose, as compared to the value next to it, and values throughout the picture. You know, is this area here on the side is definitely darker than the upper cheek, but maybe I went a little too dark there. Again, squinting is important. Yeah, I'd say it's a little too dark in the lower right area in comparison, but in terms of relative, it should be lighter than this side, and it's almost darker. Okay, so I might have to go back. Maybe I can lift a little of that. I don't know. There's a point at which you kind of have to stop and you can't go any further. But these are the types of questions you're asking yourself constantly. You know, what's the relative darkness here to, you know, the edge of the jacket? These two areas are pretty similar in value, separated by this light of the shirt, and all of that. So you're constantly asking those questions, and at the same time you're also like focusing on technique, soft and hard edges, and blending and all that. And so there's so much going on. I think a lot of people don't appreciate fully what everything that the painter is thinking about while they're painting, and all. So there you go. I'm going to sign it and call it done. It's been 32 minutes. Thank you for participating today. I'm going to end this live stream. The video will be up on my channel for all to see very soon. And yeah, thank you for being a part. And tomorrow is day 5, and I don't know what I'm painting tomorrow. We'll find out when I get there. Okay, again, you're welcome to join me each day as I paint a portrait in the month of March, and just try to get better in my skills in watercolor. Thanks for being here. See you next time.